Standing firm. This is Radio Cayman in the Cayman Islands.
Oh, I think they're doing a great job. A lot of them are.
Good afternoon, Dwayne. How are you?
Not too bad, sir.
Ladies and gentlemen,
Radio Cayman's Talk Today with Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
But I do have some questions.
There are more questions than answers.
Radio Cayman's Talk Today.
If you're ready to talk, we're willing to listen.
Well, I really enjoy this program today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
May God bless every person.
Hey, good afternoon and welcome, and thank you for joining us here for what's going to be another wonderful installation of our monthly series. Good company of Kevin and Carolina. We'll tell you more about them as we get into our discussion. Please stay tuned for Talk Today.
Radio Cayman's Talk Today, the Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program. We ask our listeners to avoid statements or comments which are abusive, derogatory, malicious, or defamatory. Do not use any indecent language or make any statement which is false or misleading. Email talktoday@candw.ky or call 1-800-534-8255.
Courtesy of Flow.
Cayman's #1 network that connects you to your world like never before.
Let your voice be heard. Once again, here's your host, Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon, and thank you so much for joining us as we invite you to be a part of our discussion. 949-8037 or 1-800-534-TALK. You can always WhatsApp 925-3261. Miss Carolina Ferreira joins us. And before we get to the dashing handsome Kevin from GQ, not from the Minions, Miss Carolina, good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon. How are you, Sterling?
I'm told, Kevin, other than me, you're the only other person that we can get Carolina to laugh and to be so jovial. It must be something. It must be the beard that we have, man.
The beard, yeah. No, it's an absolute pleasure because obviously it's all part of our partnership working together that you have to enjoy working together, and that forms part of a fruitful relationship and friendship as well. So it's good that we're all working together.
And thank you. And even though, I always believe that it's wonderful to be able to find that silver lining in every dark cloud, that positiveness and everything. The work that you do, Ms. Carlin, if you don't mind me sharing, you, Kevin, and the Mash on it's incredible. I think anybody else with less, sort of stamina and stature would be overwhelmed. You guys have to be commended, and I trust that the community will be ever supportive, especially now that it's summer and the children are going to be everywhere involved in everything. Parents are going to be pulled, sometimes what they say, betwixt and between, simply because there's so much and yet so few of us. So honestly, publicly, thanks very much.
Oh, we appreciate that, and I think it's at the end of the day, we all want the same thing, right? Mm-hmm. And just like we all want to make sure that all our children are safe, that they are looked after, that they get to be children for as long as possible and enjoy their childhoods, free from violence or any form of trauma, and it's just, and that's what our aim is, and that's why it is that we have to tackle these really difficult topics as often as we do. And, Kevin knows this, I feel like I'm a broken record, but for as long as this is happening, we're going to keep talking about it so that hopefully, because we understand that there's still a lot of people who don't know a lot of these things, who haven't gotten these messages. And as you bring it back now, we are right in the middle of camp season. And it's great for kids to have a break from school, but we know that parents need somewhere to put them in for their own development, but also, because people work and all of that. But it's also one of our this is the greatest time for vulnerability here at home because of the fact that we don't have standards across the board that are dictating how, the people who are looking after our kids should be looking after our kids during the summer. There's very little by way of safeguarding that is still in place, very little sort of general acknowledgement, I think, at times. There are establishments that are trying their best, and there are others who, unless things change, are not going to change it. So that's why we do this, to empower parents with information, because the more people are asking questions, the more people are saying, this is important to us. What are you doing when it comes to screening and hiring? What are you doing when it comes to safe environment, mandatory reporting? What kind of code of conduct are your volunteers and staff required to sign on to? So you're asking those questions to raise awareness. And the reality is that, as consumers, we have, the weapon of choice, right? And it's just like, so our wallets can also be something that we can use to bring about positive change. And as we get into sort of this demystifying this notion of the pedophile and the perpetrator and this grooming, hopefully people will start seeing the connections and will draw the connections between the importance of screening and hiring practices and when it comes to, potential offenders at places like summer camps, Bible vacation schools, and any other youth sports or youth activity.
Thank you very much. And I think that's hopefully will set the stage. And as you said, you may, to some people, sound like a broken record, but for those of us who can reflect on, say, our math teachers, repetition, you're constantly doing something over the summer as well as in the weekend, during the week and otherwise. You have to constantly be into it, constantly doing it, being reminded. So it's not repetition. Right, Kevin?
Yeah, absolutely. Obviously, I always like to hear Carolina speak about that because she's passionate about it. I think you've recognised that over the years, knowing her far longer than I have, and it's actually reassuring for me that we have partners in the community, partner in the police, in our reactive efforts, especially, but also the proactive prevention work that we're trying to delve into more and more, and it is partners like Carolina, the Red Cross, and others across the board that help us do our job. And in a way, if that prevention work is done properly, and parents and organisations take their responsibilities seriously, then obviously it minimises the involvement of the police, which is the ultimate aim, really. I think we're not naive enough to think that it's never going to go away. It has been a problem in human society for a long time. So, a lot of the work that we're doing, it's never ending. And, I'll disagree with the broken record side. I think it needs to be, it needs to be said. It needs to be reminded, because I'm just thinking in my head now, there's always new generations of parents coming through who haven't ever thought about children before in their own lives. And when they become a parent, it's all new to them. So the message, the record needs to be recirculated, whether on vinyl, CD, or iPod or whatever. So it's an important message, and I know sometimes we sort of have a light-hearted, not approach to it, but a light-hearted exchange of views here on radio, which is really refreshing. But there's also a serious message behind it as well. So,
and thanks for sharing both things. And Carnell, I honestly endorse wholly what Kevin has shared. It's not a broken record, because sometimes people, especially difficult topics like this, I have to prepare for it, right? And that's just at this end. Then you get involved. You're a parent. You're a member of the community. You read the media. You're involved in activities. You hear these things. And if we're not informed and unaware, then really we can't be valuable contributors to our society. And that sort of a lighthearted approach may make it more palatable, Sometimes, what I say, a spoonful of medicine goes on easy with a little bit of honey. It's part of hopefully, the approach to get people to recognize that we talk about it. There are resources, and we don't need to be so afraid to ask a question. The people that we're asking the questions of, they're nice people. I mean, at least Kevin,
I'll agree with that. That's true. But again, it's not one single agency that works.
Exactly.
This is, you're doing your bit, I'm doing my bit, Carolina's doing hers, and there's many, many other people that are doing theirs. And, we're just giving the voice of our own organisations and our own thoughts. But I'm sure if we had a group of, 12, 20 people here, they'd all contribute to it in their own way. And that's what drives me, that I know there are people out there that do care, don't always get the opportunity to say so on media. So, in a way, trying to promote their own words as well, that there's a lot of people that are out there that do care, and that's what keeps us going.
And I appreciate that. Now, perpetrators and the idea of pedophiles, and sometimes we don't know the words. We think, this word and that word. Well, they're two different words, but they're the same thing. And, sometimes, sadly, we hear something and, well, we're not quite sure, but we're accustomed to hear it, and we never ask, well, what is it, and how does this come about? And we labor in this bliss sometimes in our own minds.
I think the importance, is just like when you're talking about not just terminology, but also the images, that it evokes, right? And I think it's one of those things that, especially for those of us who, are sort of grew up in an analog society and stuff, the messages that we ended up having, we have some really fixed ideas about, who the quote unquote bad guys are, right? And for my generation, it was the whole stranger danger thing and the creepy guy with the trench coat and whatnot who would flash people and what. So this notion of sort of using words interchangeably has actually really done us a great disservice, because when we're talking about things and we're talking about sort of them, the perpetrators, the pedophiles, or it's kind of, we're othering them. So in other words, we're creating sort of this barrier where these things happen outside to other people, when in reality, what we know is that in 90% of cases of child sexual abuse, the perpetrator is known by the child and most likely their parents or guardians, right? So when we're talking about this, and once we mention that and we try to break that through to people, it's important for them to recognize, because it's not about the danger that is, to the people that you don't give your access to your child, but rather it is, coming from that very group of people, or, those persons that you have given that trust and that level of access. So the reason why we make it a point to try to separate things is because words matter. So when we're talking about, pedophiles who are, the pedophile is a clinical term for a person who has been diagnosed with a psychological disorder where they either primarily or exclusively have a sexual attraction to children. Yeah. And this is prepubescent children. Okay. So there are different types of, the hebophile, and I think it's ephebophile and whatnot that talks about pubescent children and post-pubescent children and all of that. So there are different sort of clinical terms for that psychological disorder. And, it's one of those terms that obviously we get very emotive just in terms of hearing about it. But the reality is that there are people who have recognized that they have this attraction to children who don't actually act upon it. Yeah. So it's a clinical term. It's a psychological disorder, but it does not automatically mean that someone who recognizes this is going to become a perpetrator. Similarly, there are perpetrators who basically just end up being opportunists, in that it's not necessarily about having that psychological disorder or having that primary or exclusive attraction to children, but rather it becomes a crime of opportunity. So these are, and what we end up seeing is, people who otherwise end up having, relationships with adults and, are possibly in long-term relationships, might be married and whatnot, and have had relationships with adults, but rather when they feel as if they have an opportunity to offend. And it's like, so again, this is not about a psychological disorder or anything along those lines, but who are actually perpetrating these crimes because of the opportunity and the access that they're given. Yeah, so I think it's important for us to recognize that, not only in terms of just to broaden our understanding, but rather to then kind of, it's not going to be that person who is separate and apart from our sphere, right? It's not going to be that person whom we feel a little bit funny about, right? And it's not going to be that like I said, the other, that when it comes to perpetuation of crimes against our children, it's going to be the people that have access. It's going to be the people who are in our sporting organizations, our youth organizations, our homes, our churches, and whatnot, who end up committing a lot of these crimes, and that's why it's important for us to acknowledge that.
All right. Well, when we come back from our break, let's continue that so that people get an understanding, maybe the questions that we can ask, things that we can look for, little safeguards that we can employ to ensure that we are as safe and as effective as we can be. The phone lines are open, 1-800-534-8255. Please feel free to listen, but also, join us and be part of our conversation. Stay tuned for Talk Today.
Give me freedom, give me fire.
Cave Bar and Lounge in Northside, your home for all the World Cup action. Open daily from 10 a.m. with $70 bucket specials during all World Cup games and daily happy hour specials. Feel the passion, feel the fire, free the mind, and enjoy the game at the Cave Bar and Lounge, located on Frankstown Road in the Old Nico Norte.
When I get older, I will be stronger. They'll call me freedom, just like a waving flag. So wave your flag.
Cave Bar and Lounge.
King Sports Center's Art of Fun Summer Camp is back from July 3rd to August 3rd. Now in its 14th year, the Art of Fun Camp is ideal for kids aged 5 through 10 with activities from football, basketball, dodgeball, squash, rock climbing, arts and craft, dance, singing, and more. Your child can stay cool while having fun in a safe and secure environment. For more info, email kings.brebanks@gmail.com. That's kings.brebanks@gmail.com or call 946-KING, like King's Sports Center on Facebook, and you can also find them on Instagram or call 946-5464. King's Sports Center, providing you with all your fitness, recreation, and relaxation needs.
Kia Soul passes it to Kia Sportage. Sportage makes a stylish move over to the sleek Optima. Optima then flicks it across to the 7-seat Sorrento. Sorrento heads it. Goal! Kia!
It's time to score with the entire 2018 Kia lineup at GT Motors. Get up to $3,000 cash back. The first 50 customers will score a World Cup replica football and mascot. Hurry, it's the best thing that's happened to car buyers all year. The 2018 Kia clearance sale, only at GT Motors on Godfrey Nixon Way. Kia, driving football fever.
Radio Cayman Super Jam Show.
Tune in every Monday through Friday from 3 to 6 p.m. for
Radio Cayman Super Jam Show,
the #1 drive time entertainment show on your radio.
Another proud sponsor of the Super Jam Showdown.
Love your like a fresh vegetable.
The Georgetown Farmers Market, offering the freshest in local produce, preserves, and crafts.
Be proud to be Caymanian. Shop local at the Georgetown Farmers Market today.
Nursing, education, social work, media studies, hospitality, electrical, plumbing, AC. Wow, I didn't even know that the University College of the Cayman Islands offered all that.
Yes, all that and more, as well as event management and QuickBooks. They also did customized training for our staff last month. Hey, didn't your son just graduate from high school? Take him so he can apply for the fall semester.
Pursue your academic and professional goals at UCCI. Admissions are ongoing. Classes start August 27th. Visit them or call 623-8224 to learn more.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon. Welcome back to Talk Today. Thank you for joining us. And again, an opportunity for us to continue to inform and involve a wider community in this issue, as we have Carlina Ferrer and can I say Sir Kevin?
No, you can just call me Kevin.
Just Kevin?
Okay. Yeah. Right. I feel as though we've got that relationship now.
We're okay now. Okay.
Thank you, though.
Oh. Yes, my lord. No, but as I was just talking and thinking, as Carlina, this whole idea that in our society we need to become increasingly involved so that we understand, our families. We understand our neighbors. We are not just there. There's a time I'm told that in this society, if people were out of town, their neighbors knew, and they watered the plants and walked the dogs, and may have, depending on the circumstance, may have, very safely, willingly, lovingly looked after the children and the birds and everything else. Now it seems that we have people who are almost like, how you would say, little electronic little things that we put in our houses to look like our houses are being occupied, and we do everything we can to make sure that nobody knows that we're not at home. It's a different world.
It is. I mean, but I think it's also important for us to recognize that, child sexual abuse and child sexual abuse in Cayman specifically, this is not a new phenomenon. I think it's really about, understanding the fact that these things have happened, and that the reason why we're talking about it now more so than we have in the past is because there's been a cultural shift that has made that unacceptable, or that has kept us from kind of trying to sweep it under the rug, or, kind of determine that it was because this is how this family is, or, this, I can try to keep people separate and apart. And I think it's one of those the world has changed in a lot of ways. And like you said before, there are a lot of things that we may have lost, but there's also a lot of things that we are gaining by, ensuring safety and talking about these things and bringing it to the forefront, So it's one of those things that is just, I guess, a part of the evolution of our society. And then it also gives us an opportunity to figure out and determine what's worth fighting for. So it's just like, and how much can we actually try to turn back the hands of the clock in terms of safety and whatnot, but also addressing things that for a long time weren't even, at the forefront, much less, getting this level of discussion.
Yeah, and I think one important thing to mention, certainly from my observations, is that over time, certainly in recent times, we have to commend the children as well. The very same children that are potentially being abused or physically or sexually. There seems to be a lot more confidence in them through their own education, through the work that the education ministry is doing, through certain curricula at school. And it seems that the youth of today, if that sounds very, sounds like an old man statement, that doesn't it? But I'm certainly viewing that from my professional observations, that the children are more willing to come forward, and that obviously increases the reporting, which is a good thing, because we're becoming more aware, and as much as statistics can be manipulated, at least if there's an increase in reporting, it looks like there's more offences occurring, when in fact there aren't. It's just that that there is more confidence either by the parents or the guardians, or crucially by the children themselves, that they've got not just confidence in the police, but that from the very first step of whoever they disclose to, whoever that might be, that is the one major step that a child takes to have that confidence, trust, that parent or that adult that they are disclosing to, or another child even, is going to assist them then in that process of making sure it doesn't happen to somebody else. And
in respect for that, I think that hopefully that as listeners we don't take that statement too lightly, because I think that's part and parcel of the education and the public awareness, so that the children understand that there is a resource. They come to appreciate that, well, this thing doesn't feel right. In fact, it isn't right and it's not acceptable, and this is the avenue. And we're hearing instances where a child says, well, to her classmate, his classmate, or whatever, such and such, and that friend willingly, without fear of, betraying that one's confidence, say, no, I need to go to tell Mrs. Ebanks about this, or teacher, because something's not right here. And Mrs. Ebanks realizes, okay, and does what is expected of an adult to make sure that those children are protected. And I think that's a good culture to develop.
And of course the legislators have recognised that as well, with the advent of the children law and making it mandated reporting for certain professionals and people coming into contact with children in youth serving organisations. So that's definitely a major step forward, that there is then a positive obligation, a mandated legal obligation on professions to report it. The next step is then having the general populace aware of that. So even though they're not mandated to report, that there's still a civic responsibility, and you can't overstress that enough. There is in all manners of crime, all matters of crime, there is a civic responsibility to do the right thing. And obviously focusing on what we're talking about today. If you see or hear or know of a child being abused, whether it's today, yesterday or historically, then it is your civic duty, not just to that one child, but to any potential victims in the future, or children that are hiding behind that proverbial sofa that are waiting for somebody to come and help them, and they're waiting for that adult to come and rescue them, really. And, without sounding too much like superheroes, but that's the job of the adults in society, to be that sort of quote-unquote superhero and rescue that child.
Yeah, and our aim, the reality is that we've shot even higher than that when it comes to this notion of we shouldn't be putting a child in that position in the first place. And I think once we make that, we take all of those gains, all of those things that Kevin mentioned and whatnot, those are all positive steps forward, but we're still on the first rung of the ladder that we're going to climb. And the idea really is going to be about getting it back to adult responsibility of protecting children and not putting them in that position in the first place. guys. And that's why we talk about these things. That's why we kind of lay it out in terms of getting people to understand. That's why we're about to get into, talking about grooming, and this notion of understanding a little bit more about this behavior so that you're more empowered to possibly recognize it, or at least be more attuned to, this doesn't really feel right, but at least now you have something that you can kind of put your finger on when it comes to it.
As we talk about grooming, can I share with you, and please, if this isn't the context, then sort of correct it, but how the pastor once say, the people that we allow to take advantage of us more, our friends and our acquaintances, people that we know, our family, not the stranger, the person who seemingly appears nice and cordial and accommodating and polite, professional, all of the wonderful attributes, is the person we would probably gravitate towards, invite closer to us, as opposed to this sort of menacing character. And so as we talk about grooming, that person who comes up to be very, very nice or seems unassuming or what have you, doesn't mean because he's a nice guy that he is or isn't, but don't be...
I mean, it's across the board. It's tantamount to fraudulent behaviour. I mean, whether it be financial, whether it be child sexual abuse or any other, if you are a fraud, you will do all you can to mask and cover what you are attempting to do in whatever field it is, and obviously finance is one of them. But that's exactly what it is. They'll get as close as possible, the word access was mentioned before, to then facilitate that access. And be very convincing with it. And still to this day, the cases that have gone through courts in just in the last year, there are still commentators on the blogs that still support certain offenders and convicted persons, and that annoys me personally, and annoys Carolina, because it annoys me in so much as they can't see beyond that. The commentators can't see beyond that. That there has been an offence committed. There was this behaviour before that. There was this grooming behaviour, and people do understand it, but it just seems they won't accept it. And certainly the two cases I'm thinking of, people went, well, I always thought he was this and I always thought he was that. But even in the face of physical evidence and convictions at court, they're still defending the actions of an offender, of a perpetrator, and I can't understand that. I can't get my head around it. I don't think I'll ever understand the motivations. I mean, I've studied criminology, and I've obviously as a professional police officer, we try and understand offending behaviour, but I think unless you're in that field of offending, we'll never understand why somebody steals, or why. We can research it as much as we want, and we can talk to as many criminologists as we want, but you'll never fully understand it until you're actually engaged in it, which of course isn't we want to get the opposite of that. So I'm part of my drive is to try and educate my staff, and when we're doing investigations, for instance, is to look at the bigger picture, look at the broader thing, look at all the evidence that's not just in front of us, but that's available as well. Technology's advancing. There's new methods of offending behaviour now, and we have to look outside the box as to how we do those investigations, because people are becoming not just more and more sinister, but more and more clandestine in what they're doing as well, and that makes it very difficult to investigate. So I know that's specific to my role as a police officer and the team's role as police investigators. But we have to move with the times, because the offenders are, and it's like a burglar. They're always ahead of the game. They'll always look for chinks in the armour, in the same way that a child sexual abuse perpetrator will look for those accessibilities and things.
Right.
You have a break, or?
We do. And a call. What are we taking, a call, Miss Susan, or a break? We're taking a break. All right. Please stay tuned. When we come back, we'll join our callers and continue our discussion.
South Coast Bar and Grill up in Breakers, man, that is the place. For traditional Cayman cuisine, oh, you will love the taste. At South Coast Bar and Grill, we got conch and lobster and turtle stew. And every Sunday, come out with your family for the barbecue.
Enjoy dining by the sea in the relaxed, tranquil atmosphere with local food specials every day and karaoke every Saturday night with Cayman Elvis.
For Cayman and cuisine, the talk today is South Coast Bar and Grill.
Accidents can happen at any time and can leave a strain on you and your family. Be prepared with Workman's Compensation Insurance from Fidelity Insurance. Our brokers can help you meet your government requirements and ensure that you are covered should an accident happen. Don't leave it to chance. Email Fidelity Insurance at insure@fidelitykman.com for a free quote. Get workman's compensation from Fidelity Insurance and get some peace of mind. Fidelity, we're good for you.
Pirates Cave and Eatery.
Tune in Monday through Friday from 3 to 6 p.m.
Exclusive.
Radio Cayman's Super Jam Show, the #1 drive time entertainment show on your radio, featuring Will Sinatra. Enjoy a mix of pop, hip-hop, dancehall, and soca, and an entertainment trivia section.
Another proud sponsor of the Super Jam Show.
Pirates Cave and Eatery.
Bring your family, satisfy your appetite, enjoy the ambience.
Did you know that littering and illegal dumping can contribute to pollution, unsightliness, blocked drains, and harborage of rodents and pests? By taking responsibility for your surroundings, you can have clean communities, safe water, and healthy lives. Let's all play our part to keep Cayman clean. Don't litter. If you need more information on making Cayman litter-free, please visit DEH website at deh.gov.ky.
89.9 Radio Cayman helps you to weather the storm during this hurricane season.
One of the most crucial elements of hurricane preparedness is storm awareness. During the season, it is of utmost importance to pay attention to the latest local weather forecast, as hurricanes do not suddenly form or strike. There are various methods of advanced notification. Utilizing such may be the difference between a favorable outcome and disaster. Both television and radio serve as excellent mediums with up-to-the-minute storm path information in the wake of a hurricane. Another method of tracking a hurricane may be only arm's length away. Your smartphone or tablet can be your most valuable tool before, during, and after a storm, providing countless numbers of apps with crucial hurricane information. Many apps allow you to track storms with moving radar and satellite imagery, plus offer alerts, current conditions, forecasts, advisories, and even video.
This hurricane preparedness tip was brought to you by your community radio station, Radio Cayman, 89.9 FM. Satisfy your World Cup cravings at Merengue Town. Now under sole ownership by Mr. Johnny. $15 bucket specials during the game. And after game time, it's party time. With Karaoke Wednesdays, the Friday night party with DJ Bambino. And on Saturday and Sunday, get your sweetness on with DJ Sugar. Enjoy free finger foods and soup. And don't forget about the fried fish specials. Only at Merengue Town. Located in Georgetown on Boilers Road off Walkers Road. Merengue Town. It's time. Feel the rhythm. Time to feel the vibes. It's time for Merengue Town.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Good afternoon. Welcome back to Talk Today. Thank you for joining us, and we're really grateful for the opportunity to be able to have this conversation as we look after not just nurturing but protecting and ensuring the safety of our children. Kevin and Carolina joins us as part of the MASH unit. As we continue talking about grooming, let's just first go to our phones and join our caller. Hey, good afternoon and welcome. You're on Talk Today.
Hi, good afternoon.
Hi, good afternoon. Welcome.
Yes, sir. Just want to say there's still the fear of reporting suspected abuse, because depending on who the abuser is, it is still covered. I think by now Mr. Ashford know who I'm talking to, who is talking here. Right now, I have to take my daughter's case outside of the Cayman Islands because the injustice that was done to her is not fair. She reported that she was being abused, and this was being reported. Her abuser acknowledged that this was certain things was done to her, can't put it on the ear. And what happened is that, they could not charge him. He then went and took an oath that he never did certain things to my daughter. Nobody did anything to him. Although the law said making an oath or a false report or declaration is an offense, nothing was done to this abuser. So this coming on the radio and protecting of children, it needs to be across the board for the love of God.
Yes,
my child needs to be protected. Right now, they're writing stuff on my vehicle. Every now and then, I would get stuff written on my vehicle. You need to take your daughter and leave Cayman because there's nothing else nobody can do, and all kind of nasty things. So, I just want to make Mr. Ashworth know that we are going through hell because of the decision that was made. But right now, I took it up with outside authorities, and it's coming back to his office very soon, and the office of the DPP. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Kevin?
Obviously, I want to respond, and I'm sorry that your caller feels that way. I am aware of the case. I think we've discussed that previously, very briefly, and it's certainly not appropriate to discuss it. On the wider issue of, I think the very first comment that she mentioned was that people are still reluctant to report, and we're very aware of that, and that's part of the process that we're going through by having these discussions is hopefully to to engage with more listeners and just make them aware that we are making efforts to listen to complaints and listen to reports of abuse, and without going into too much depth. Obviously, we have to take each one on merits, and we have to investigate, and we have to go with the evidence, and of course it gets very, very complicated the more the more in depth you go. That being said, it's important that we do recognise that there are still problems as well, not just with my organisation, but elsewhere. We need to join up with different agencies and ourselves, DCFS, HSA. That's the whole purpose of the multi-agency safeguarding hub, that we don't just look at it from one agency's perspective, and certainly not from my personal perspective. It's looked at from an agency perspective. And we do have those joined up meetings, we have those strategy meetings, and that includes the Office of Director of Public Prosecutions as well. So if I can reassure the general listening public that those conversations do take place, and we have to be very careful and cautious as to how we approach certain incidents and certain reports. But I absolutely guarantee that every single report that is made is looked at very carefully. We're not going to let anything, slip through the net, as it were. And it might not be the correct decision on behalf of the person making the report or the victim, but we then provide and kick in, victim support, advisory counselling and advocates in the community. And Ms. Cindy's just joined us as well. So recognising that one single agency can't address the whole problem, it is that multi-agency approach.
Thanks very much. Well, Ms. Cindy, welcome. We were expecting you, and you came as expected, so thank you very much for joining us. Ms. Cindy Leclatis joins us. And as you always say, it's not contagious.
No, it's last name. It's not contagious.
That was her first introduction to me. I thought, this is a lady who is as much a charmer as she is competent.
Oh, thank you.
Welcome. No, share with us. Maybe as we get into discussion, maybe Ms. Carlino. She's the boss, as you know, so we just take instruction. We'll bring Cindy into our discussion. Any initial thoughts as you join us now, or you just want us to pick up and continue?
I actually had an opportunity to listen on my way trying to get here, and I think everybody's covered some really excellent points as, in the discussion sort of taking a good direction and raising awareness as well as challenging some belief systems when it comes to, I heard there was something earlier we were talking about how, I myself am of the same generation of the stranger danger and the nasty guy in the trench coat, and, be careful of them, and just kind of turning it back to, a little bit more recognition that it is 90% of the time it's someone that the family or the child or, the victim knows and is familiar with. And so I think that's a pretty huge eye-opener, I find, for to kind of break through the denial that, this is something that happens to, other people and it's a one-off. And, I think that's a huge statistic that you can't look away from.
That kind of gives us the idea back to grooming, Ms. Carlino.
Yeah, no, and one of the things that Kevin was touching on, talking about, the sort of the fervent supporters of known perpetrators. And the reality is that, grooming is this systematic way in which, potential perpetrators are trying to gain the child's trust as well as the trust of parents, guardians, but also of us as a community. And I think that's part of the issue, whereas we may never understand in terms of how these people commit these crimes. But the reality is, for the people who choose not to see what's clearly in front of them, they have been groomed as well, and I think that's what that's what makes it so sinister, because the whole idea behind it is to ensure that should that child ever choose to disclose, because there's a lot that goes in terms of grooming. It's not just, you meet a child today and then tomorrow you're already doing horrible things to them. No, you're developing that relationship. You're gaining that child's trust. You're gaining the trust from their parents, their guardians, by doing things like, making yourself available, being the one that's always, playing with them and whatnot. And then, very slowly that things start being introduced that start kind of prepping the child for the abuse that's to come. And I know Cindy can speak a lot more to it when it comes to that. But the reality is that grooming, we as a community, every time that perpetration happens and whatnot, and it's just like when you're looking at people who have perpetrated crimes and we go, oh my God, I had no idea, we've been groomed as well. Because that's what it is. It's about making sure that they maintain, like as Kevin said, when it comes to the fraud, or Miriam Foster used the word con artist, because what you're trying to do is create this entire persona that is seen to be above reproach, so that should anything come up, our initial reaction as adults is going to be, couldn't possibly be. Mm-hmm. That's grooming too.
The perfect con, huh?
Perfect con.
Mm-hmm. And we all can fall victim. I mean, that individual is, endearing and whatever else it is. Huh?
Mm-hmm. And it's such a horrendous issue that, we don't want to see or recognize. We don't want to believe it. Yeah. You think if I have to recognize that this happened, that means it's a whole different. It just blows your mind.
Yeah. Can I ask you? And again, we don't need to go there, but there are those of us. We talk about sixth sense or whatever. We get gut feeling. So we meet this person, with respect. Pastor, police officer, politician, preacher, talk show host, the principal of school, the coach, male or female. Just seems so nice, but there's something in that initial exchange that
your spirit doesn't take to them.
That's the phrase that comes to mind. Mm-hmm. But we're not willing to, act on it. We dismiss it so quickly because, this man or woman is so wonderful.
I think human interaction anyway, we make first appearances, don't we? We sort of instantly judge people to our detriment sometimes, because obviously some people turn out to be very nice. When I first met you, for instance, you knew I was going to go there.
Actually, that was totally directed at me. I knew it.
I didn't even want to say it.
I knew it. It was totally directed at me, but it's okay, Kevin.
But it is true, isn't it? We do, we're human beings. We make instant judgments whether we like or dislike, and part of that is the fight or flight, or, I'm not a psychologist, but we all do it. I do it, and sometimes I chastise myself for doing it. I sometimes trust myself that my instinct is correct on some, and you choose to befriend some people and not others. Now, why do we do that? Obviously, we're going into depth there, but the reason I'm saying this is we can't use that as an evidential tool and say, oh, there's something not quite right, because usually the people that we don't think, or that there is something wrong with them, are the ones that are not actually doing anything, and it's actually the opposite ones who are being nice, and I won't say overly nice, but are just genuinely nice, approachable, calm, and it's that last. I would never have thought it was that person, and that's, I think, what we're saying here. It's and as Cindy said, then it's almost like the disbelief of, no, it can't be that person. And I did share offline, didn't I? Was just saying, and that could be you, it could be I, it could be somebody in a position of trust that we're working with now, or that we're dealing with now. And knowing what I know now and the research I've done on this subject, I wouldn't be surprised if people thought that about me or certain police officers or Carolina, because we're all in that. We've all put ourselves up as at the vanguard, really, of this child protection issue, and therefore have to be scrutinised as well in the same way, because otherwise we wouldn't be.
It's not cynical. It's just you're being protective, and it's not because you had a personal experience. There's the other thing too. You find that people, that must have been you, because only people like that can be champions and such. But we're hopefully half decent people, for the most part.
Hopefully.
All right.
I noticed Kevin didn't include me on that list.
I'm still processing.
So I'm okay.
Yeah, for now. All right. I'm going to ask for the topic grooming, right? So that we can understand it. Mm-hmm. And I wanted people listening, especially parents, to start to think, you're this sort of line of defense for your children. You're sacrificing so much for them to have all the things that you think are good for them. But don't just freely turn them loose somewhere to go to it, coach so-and-so or music teacher such and such. And whatever it is, you don't need to be overly protective and really foolish, but don't be foolish either not being overly protective. That makes sense. When you come back, maybe a half an hour almost straight of talking. Let's see what we can do. Stay tuned for Talk Today.
From district to district, moving through the waters to Cayman Bracken, Little Cayman. Your station, your voice. All things Cayman. One radio, many people. This is home.
Radio Cayman in the Cayman Islands.
Radio Cayman.
Radio Cayman's newsroom. These are the biggest stories right now.
Police say they are seeing the returns from the focus on community policing, citing a number of incidents demonstrating how improved relationships in neighborhoods are helping police do everything from solve crimes to helping those in need. In one instance, officers were able to help medical authorities quickly find an elderly woman who'd fallen and called 911, but was unable to provide her name or exact physical address. In international news, 8 critically endangered black rhinos in Kenya are dead after wildlife workers moved them from the capital to a new national park. Government officials in that country say it appears the rhinos died of salt poisoning after becoming dehydrated. The ministry suspended the ongoing move of rhinos and said the surviving ones in the park are being closely monitored. In a fresh bout of diplomatic whiplash, U.S. President Donald Trump denied today that he had criticized Prime Minister Theresa May and declared the U.S.-UK relationship, quote, the highest level of special. This not long after his interview in The Sun blasting May. Mr. Trump also blamed London's mayor for terror attacks against the city and argued that Europe was, quote, losing its culture because of immigration. The U.S. has nosed ahead of Saudi Arabia and is on pace to bypass Russia, becoming the world's biggest oil producer for the first time in more than 4 decades. The latest forecast from the U.S. Energy Information Administration predicts U.S. output will grow next year to 11.8 million barrels a day. An agency official says if the forecast holds, that would make the U.S. the world's leading producer of crude oil. Those are your headlines. From Radio Cayman's newsroom, I'm April Cummings.
Radio Cayman, the voice of the Cayman Islands.
What's happening in your community? News and information, music and more. You can find us. www.radiocayman.gov.ky. Like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter. Radio Cayman is your choice, your voice for today's biggest news. Radio Cayman.
The Advanced Automotive Chevrolet 30-day countdown is on. For the month of July, save big with once-in-a-year pricing on all remaining 2018 Chevrolet models. Advanced Automotive is making room for 2019 models with unbeatable pricing on remaining 2018 models. We are in the last 20 days. Come and see the 2018 Colorado pickup, packed with ingenious technology and superior fuel efficiency, and available with $1,000 cash back. 30-day countdown from Advanced Automotive. Visit the showroom on Owen Roberts Drive or visit AdvancedChevrolet.com today.
South Coast Bar and Grill up in Breakers, man, that is the place for traditional Cayman cuisine. Oh, you will love this. South Coast Bar and Grill, we got conch and lobster and turtle stew. And every Sunday come out with your family for the barbecue.
Enjoy dining by the sea in the relaxed, tranquil atmosphere with local food specials every day and karaoke every Saturday night with Cayman Elvis.
For Cayman and cuisine, the talk today is South Coast Bar and Grill.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners' participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon. Welcome back to Talk Today. Thanks for joining us, and we certainly want to invite and include you as part of the discussion and an opportunity to have our listening public, as usual, share. Cindy, Kevin, and Carolina are our guests, and as we talk about child protection. Topic, I think, Miss Cindy, we're all champions. Sometimes we just need to be much more directly involved. We do have some callers online. Why don't we, take those calls right now? Good afternoon and welcome. You're on Talk Today.
Good afternoon, Jean. Good afternoon to your panel.
Hi, good
I
Well, I've had kind of a question. Well, it is a question, but because basically what I'm listening to, and I just kind of got into the middle of the conversation in relation to child abuse and stuff on the island. But is there an organization or somewhere that kids themselves, who are advocates for the kids themselves, besides the parents, especially if you have a situation where the parent is not necessarily a physical abuser, but a mental abuser. Because I know the situation that is going on right now with the child, and they're constantly, the parents are divorced, which is usually one of the key or main, you would say, ingredients in a situation like that. And the mother is the abuser. However, the way that the system is set up, it is like the mother have the right to the child by law. She has custody of the child with visiting rights by the father. But while the child is with the mother, the child is being mentally abused. And no matter how much time, that the father says something about it, or he reach out to, I think, social services or anything about it, or they'll have the meetings or whatever, and then nothing is done on it. So my suggestion to him was, you know what, every time that she starts to mentally abuse the child, nag the child, tell the child to call 911 and leave the phone open. It's like the child, okay, I tell my dad, we tell social services, but the child is still in the situation, and nothing is being done. And it hurts my heart for the child, to be in that situation. They can't get out of it on their own. So where does the child go?
All right.
Where does that child go?
Good question. Thanks for sharing, now, Kevin.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for the caller for raising it, because that's certainly not a unique case either. There are children out there suffering that are aware of, and if the adults are struggling dealing with it, then you can just imagine the effect on the child. I know social services were mentioned then, and 911 was mentioned. The difficulty with that is, of course, that might be just an immediate response to something, but the reason the multi-agency safeguard hub has been set up is to process the referrals that come in. And although we're not a walk-in centre per se, it would be a case of if you call us concerned, which she clearly is, can she bring that child to us so that we can speak to the child? Of course, this is if the child is willing to come along. And even if not, then at least, and certainly not do it on air, but maybe leave contact details. I'll personally guarantee that I'll call that caller. We'll take some confidential details off her, and I'll take that responsibility on to ensure that the child is at least spoken to, and then we work some sort of method out about getting support. And it might not be making an arrest or anything like that. This is the whole point of this. Just by involving the police doesn't mean arrests are going to be made straight away. Primarily, it's the child safeguarding, making sure that child's welfare is looked after, and then if there's any offences that we can evidence and that we can prove later down the line, then all well and good. But let's make sure that child is safe first. And what's just been described then, very briefly, that also involves domestic violence as well and domestic abuse. So that's it's a heightened concern for me. So please, if you could encourage your caller maybe to leave details if she's willing to.
Yes, if she would.
And if not, then come and see me at the multi-agency safeguarding hub at Anderson Square, or at least give me a call on 814-6001-6001. That's my direct extension. Alternatively, email address kevin.ashworth@gov.ky. I'll guarantee that I will respond and we'll get the appropriate help.
Okay, well, Susan will get the details as well for us. If I may ask, as that caller was speaking, and to the call online, just one question. There is seemingly a perception in societies, maybe specifically and only in this society, that whether it's the courts, whether it's the society, that women, the mothers, have preference or given favour. So If there's father and mother, the child goes with the mother. Maybe that caller didn't allude to the extent that I heard, but that something that resonates. Is that just a perception we have? Is it a reality? Is it unfounded?
I think it was a reality for a while, but it has actually shifted quite significantly now, in large part because the children's law ends up talking about parental responsibility more so than parental rights. And therefore, I think in a lot of ways it helped to sort of even the playing field a little bit, and again, and it's one of those things where, obviously it's important for children to have access to both parents, and it's just, but there are other safeguarding measures that need to be in place when it comes to issues like this that can really happen with either parent, but that there are other dynamics that come, and that's the reason why we go all the way back talking about gender roles and all those rape bits and all these things that make you uncomfortable, Sterling. But the reason why we talk about that is because that helps to set up a lot of to understand a little bit more about how making things more equal across the board is great, but that doesn't mean that you don't have services that need to be in place in order to be able to ensure safety across the board.
Let's go to the other line and join us. So the caller, hey, good afternoon and welcome. Thank you for calling.
Good afternoon, Dwayne, and to your panel.
Good afternoon, sir.
Yeah, man. I'm
now, sorry, before you continue, I'm not hearing the caller directly, Ms. Susan. Are you there, sir?
Yeah, I'm here.
No, there you are. I don't know. You guys were hearing?
Yeah, we could hear.
I could only hear through your head, sir. I couldn't hear through mine. All right. Thank you, sir. My apologies for that.
Yeah, but good afternoon again.
Yes, sir.
No, I'm listening to this, and I'm sitting here thinking, we have a tendency to wait until there's a crisis, and then we try to fix it, but we're not very good at it. And I say that because we just had, a couple of years ago, last year, I think it was something where this guy was driving this kid. They had pictures of him exposing himself and all that. Then we get a professor at UCCI. He had thousands of pornographic pictures of children. We got people come here, we have no idea who they are. But they got this thing called Big Brother, Big Sister. And people come out and they want it. Oh, what a nice guy. And then they let their child go, oh, he's a nice guy. Those guys can be some of the nicest, least suspected people you want to see. They got it down to an art.
Yeah, so I think that's part of the challenge. You said, I think that plays into what we're talking about now about grooming. These are the people that, for most of us, we would say, wow, I would not have thought, she or he would have done that, we ourselves, then, if that's our thoughts, probably have been groomed, as it were.
The thing is,
yes, sir.
Dwayne, is this, that there's no you can be a doctor, you can be a lawyer, you can be a student, or a teacher, or you could be anything. And you see, these are the things that right now I've seen in the United States where an intimidation is the thing that keeps these people from saying things, because in cases where they think maybe it'll hurt their parents or something like that, they'll try to keep it to themselves because they want to protect their parents. You see, these are the things that when these guys do these things, you know what they should do? When I was a kid, I remember we had a case where a 17-year-old or 18-year-old guy molested this little girl. I think she was 12. In them days, we didn't have these judges coming up to talk about, we can't do that because the law says. The law we got today was made by man. And there was a reason why when you go to court and you hear people, some people get off, some people don't get off. Sometimes money talks, sometimes they're different things. But that guy there, he will remember, and I'm sure he remembers. They took him and stripped him naked, lay him on top of a butchering table. And the father and son of that little girl held his hand. Yeah. And his father lashed him with a camera.
Kevin, I mean, in our society, thanks very much, sir, for sharing with us. Now, our society, people are groomed. They would be victim as well as the rest of us.
They are, yeah. And one of the thoughts I was having then throughout that dialogue was just the person being groomed shouldn't be the one feeling guilty as well. The blame should be always on the abuser, and that's one message that's constantly given. Certainly in relation to child sexual abuse, it's not the child's fault, it's the abuser's fault, and the blame lies with them particularly. In relation to other issues there about people, you're exactly right, and I think you intervened there about the grooming. That's classic grooming. Those two cases that were just mentioned then, those people very close to those perpetrators were groomed themselves and were so conditioned into that grooming that still to this day they believe that person didn't do anything wrong despite the evidence that was found at court. So that's the difficulty we have. And I'm not as I say, I'm not apportioning blame on those people. It's, to me, that's the challenge as well, to try and engage with those people and over time make them realise that what happened was wrong, and how how we can try and address that in the future. And excuse me, and those lessons learned, then other adults and of course children coming into adolescence and adulthood themselves can then learn from that behaviour and possibly recognise signs and indicators of that. As I said before at the beginning of the show, when they become parents themselves, they need to be hyper aware of these things, because the technology, we're talking about grooming, but there is specific online grooming as well, which is a whole subject altogether, and the parents of tomorrow need to be uber sensitive to that and the different methodology that people are using to access children.
And I think that's the challenge. Ms. Carolina?
If I'm not sure if we're ready for a break or not, but because if we can get into the 6 stages of grooming, they've done a lot of work with offenders, and they've actually been able to kind of break this down into the 6 stages of grooming that will help people understand a little bit how these things happen.
All right. I appreciate you sharing that. After our break, get your pen and pencils. Maybe you can record it. If not, you can, get a copy of the program. It's going to be on YouTube as well, Ms. Susan tells us. 6 stages of grooming. All right, stay tuned for Talk Today.
Honey, our fridge has stopped working again. Everything in the freezer is melting. We need to get this repaired right away. I'm calling Brand Source Service.
When you need the very best appliance service, call Brand Source Service at 623-5000. Offering service and installation of all brands and models of appliances. Brand Source Service is Cayman's source for appliance parts and repairs, with qualified and experienced technicians and the island's largest stock of appliance parts. Brand Source Service will have your repair completed in a flash. So, whatever the problem is, call the experts at 623-5000. Brand Source Service, Dorsey Drive, Industrial Park. Telephone 623-5000.
The time has come for there only can be one. The World Cup Finals, Sunday, July 15th. Will the 98 champions France, led by Mbappe and Griezmann, exercise dominance again? Or will Mandzukic and Luka Modric make history, claiming the cup in Croatia's first appearance in the World Cup Finals? Watch the action live this Sunday at 10 a.m. at Cave Bar and Lounge in Northside, with happy hour specials from 12 p.m. to close. Cave Bar and Lounge on Freixam Road in the Old Nico Norte. There's only one place you want to be for the World Cup Finals. France versus Croatia at the Cave Bar and Lounge in Northside.
The empowered woman. Performance-driven, strong-spirited. You need a ride to match your drive. Whether boss by day or mom by night, with lots of legroom and space for sports gear and other things. The new Ford EcoSport is built for you, and it's now on sale for only $22,000, saving you $2,900 off during That Motors summer sale. Stop by That Motors, where you can also save $3,000 off a new Ford Ranger XLT double cab truck. Just 2 of the many great deals going on now at That Motors on Walker's Road.
nursing, education, social work, media studies, hospitality, electrical, plumbing, AC. Wow, I didn't even know that the University College of the Cayman Islands offered all that.
Yes, all that and more, as well as event management and QuickBooks. They also did customized training for our staff last month. Hey, didn't your son just graduate from high school? Take him so he can apply for the fall semester.
Pursue your academic and professional goals at UCCI. Admissions are ongoing. Classes start August 27th. Visit them or call 623-8224 to learn more.
Normally, I get excited when my parents are packing, but not today. That's because there's a hurricane coming this way. So it sounds like we'll be staying at a shelter my mom found months ago when preparing for hurricane season. So let's see what mom's packing for me. Now she has my crate, a week's worth of food and water, my bowls, medications, a first aid kit, my pet records, and photo ID with description, some towels and blankets, a leash, and of course my collar and ID tag. Hey, what about Mr. Snuggles? Don't forget Mr. Snuggles. Thanks, Mom.
Being a responsible pet parent means planning ahead. So make sure you have a safe, pet-friendly place to stay, an evacuation route, and your pet's necessary items. And remember, if it's not safe for you, it's not safe for your pet.
This message endorsed by Breeze 105.3.
Super Jam Showdown.
Gospel music has gone too far.
Positive Monday. Population Tuesday. Latino Heat Wednesday to Thursday, back the hands of time.
Supersonic. Gay Friday, Black Party Block Top 10 Count to Female Friday.
Radio Cayman Super Jam Showdown, weekdays 3 to 6. Brought to you by
Leap Diversify.
At Leap Diversify, they are dedicated to your educational pursuits. Visit www.leapdiversify.com.
Leap Diversify. They don't succeed unless you succeed.
Sometimes having a middleman is not a bad thing, especially when it comes to insurance. Do you know that when it comes to cost, ease, speed, and peace of mind, insurance brokers ranked higher than when customers buy direct? So, for all your insurance needs, call Fidelity Insurance. We're the middleman you want. Call us today at 949-7822. Fidelity. We're good for you.
Talk today.
But I do have some questions.
Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon and welcome back to Talk Today. 949-8037 or 1-800-534-8255. In the studio, opportunity to continue telling us about how we can make sure that we not only nurture but we provide a safe, a secure environment for our children. Ms. Carlina, Mr. Kevin, Ms. Cindy joins us. 6 stages of grooming. And, Ms. Carlina?
Yeah.
I got my pen.
So, yeah, you got your pen? Okay. So when we're talking about grooming, we're talking about the process which offenders establish drawing the victim and to establish a sexual relationship with them, but also to maintain the secrecy, right? Because the secrecy is also very important. Yeah, so stage number 1, and mind you, it came about due to a lot of interviews and a lot of work that was done with offenders. So stage number 1 is actually the targeting of the victim, yeah? And the perpetrators, for the most part, tend to have a sort of a type of victim that they look for. Usually has something to do with the vulnerability of that child or young person, emotional neediness, any forms of isolation, lack of parental supervision. And as Kevin kind of, brought up a few times now, when we're talking about this digital world that we live in, that applies to online grooming as well, right? So that's why it's important. I think a lot of times we tend to think that because kids are physically at home that they're safe, but the internet opens an entire world to them right there in the size of their hand, like in the palm of their hands. So that's what, they're looking at when it comes to trying to target a specific child, yeah? Stage number 2 becomes about gaining the victim's trust. And again, from a sort of, a brick and mortar kind of perspective, it's more about watching and gathering information about the child. When we're talking about it online, it's, kind of getting those very sort of easy, basic information that children can't really tell that they're being manipulated. It's just like, oh, whom do you like? What are you into? Do you play this game? Do you like this type of music? Are you into movies and whatnot? And it's about developing that level of trust and that connection. This is also where, from that face-to-face perspective, gaining the trust also means gaining the parents' trust and the guardian's trust, and this is where we end up kind of coming into it, So it's about having that affinity, because let's be honest here. It is just like, we want people to love and like our children the way that we love and like our children, right? And it's like, so if there's that person who really looks out for them and whatnot, that's almost sort of an automatic in with us when it comes to, well, they really look out for them, and a lot of people are going to do it because they genuinely care, but it just have to be mindful of the fact that, there are people who are doing it for more sinister purposes, right? So again, and it's just like, this whole idea of, being someone that the family or the parent can rely on. I think through darkness to light, a lot of the survivors talk about, being this person being a leader, being charming, being persuasive, kind of being that person in the community. And if we think about some of the more high profile cases that, that we've had here in Cayman, that definitely ends up kind of fitting the mold. Then go on to stage 3, where the sex offender starts to fill a need for the child specifically, so filling the need. And that could be anything in terms of giving extra attention, giving gifts. This is, affection, and, all of those things that, again, that are, kind of taking that relationship to the next level, right? So, which is one of the things, too, that we come from a culture that is constantly trying to draw young people in with gifts. And I've actually made it a point for us to stop for all the youth activities that we run out of the Red Cross. Because, one, I think it's not only from this perspective, from a grooming and sex abuse perspective, does it actually do more harm than good. But also, I think the flip side, too, in terms of builds this expectation that in order for you to do anything, someone needs to give you something. And that's not a good thing for us to lay on. But that's something that we need to be aware of, because it's this filling a need, and gift giving is something that's really, and it doesn't need to be extravagant gifts. It could be just candy bars. It could be it's like Strangers with Candy, right, Cindy?
Mm-hmm. Oh, yes.
And it's just and not the TV show, but talking about the creepy people in the white van. Mm-hmm. But it's just like this notion of what is it that we're what is considered a gift and whatnot, but these little things, because for kids, depending on what it is, it could be a rock,
And then just to add to that too, like the filling in the need thing, it's in the Darkness to Light training, it talks too about parents saying about how, the whole family is being groomed because, they say, oh, we needed a babysitter, and he was, had already laid the groundwork, was right there. Oh, go to, maybe he wouldn't mind watching.
Fill the need for parents as well.
Right, exactly. Yeah. Oh, the kids wanted to go to the movies, and here, he'd take them, no problem. They need to ride somewhere. He was the go-to. So being, like I said, laying all that groundwork so that it'd be silly not to ask this person. Yeah. Or I'm sure, Kevin wouldn't mind, or that kind of thing. The groundwork has been laid because they've done all these the groundwork is there because it's a stability, right? So that when you look back on it, it's like, well, I never saw it coming.
Well, I was thinking about when you say fill the need, that as parents, we don't want to look at that child's deficit, for a gift or for affection and so on. But for us as parents, this new person, the coach, the teacher, the whoever, is willing to take your child or pick your child up, is able to help with homework or what have you. That is a need that has been accommodated and very convenient. Oh, you're so kind. Thank you so much. You're such a... Don't ignore that either.
Well, and going back to the targeting, right? The targeting of, it's like, okay, the mom or the family that lacks resources that might need that extra time, someone to take the child, that mom that, needs a break and was almost like, oh, yeah, here, take them. Okay. Thank you.
So as we're going through our discussion, we're looking at the 6 stages. We'll take our calls, but so the first one, just repeat, targeting the victim, gaining the trust, and now filling the need. So we got 50% of the way. 3 more to go, Ms. Arnell? Yeah. All right. Let's continue. Call and just hang on so we can get these other three in here, so we can get a complete.
So as Cindy was talking about this note, then it kind of feeds into stage 4, which is isolating the child, and that's where exactly those one-on-one opportunities get into place. You know, the picking up, the babysitting, and other things that are going on. Stage number 5 becomes sexualizing the relationship, and again, this can start with sort of adding small sexual talk, racy jokes, kind of try to treat the child a little bit more like a buddy or an adult. Talking about sexual conquest is something that people hear a lot, showing kids inappropriate things online. And again, it's like from an online world specific, this might be where it is that they start sending, graphic images or videos or other things along those lines. And it's also then within this aspect of it that also the abuse actually starts to happen, right? Because it's not only the introduction of, sex into the conversation, but also this notion of when the abuse actually starts to take place, right? And then it finally leads into stage 6, which is maintaining the control. Yeah, so it's just like, so once that has actually taken place, the abuse has happened, then what they want to do is to maintain that control over the child, and it can take any form from giving the gifts and meeting those needs, but then oftentimes, it's like it kind of takes that turn for the worse, where it is that, if you tell anyone, I'll hurt you, I'll hurt your family, no one will believe you, and it's just like, it can escalate very quickly, right? And because the whole idea then becomes, as a child grows increasingly uncomfortable with this, that they have that fear to maintain that secrecy.
All right, I want to pick up on some of those things, but let me see if we can balance this. Are we taking a call, Miss Susan? She's like amazing, man. We go to the phones. All right, good afternoon. Welcome. You're on Talk Today. Hello, good afternoon. Thank you for your patience and waiting, and thanks for joining us.
Yeah, good afternoon, Dwayne. How are you?
Very thankful. And yourself?
Oh, not bad, and good afternoon to your panel.
Good afternoon.
I have a few things I would like to mention about the topic of conversation we're having today.
Yes, please.
I want to know, when we talk about educating, we have school counselors, right? And I find that in society, there's so much stigma that a lot of things are not being discussed at school level, where I believe we could hand out flyers or bring in your panel to the schools, or even have a PTA meeting, with the parents, where you would hand out and educate the parents, also doing one-on-one, for each school. Where I'm going with this is, I find that if we don't have that education, to be able to have the one-on-one with the school, with the students, and also with the counselors and the PTA, I find too many times that a lot of kids are kind of redundant on coming forward because of how they went through the different phases. They were being treated to gifts, and you kind of feel that, well, my mom is not going to believe me if I tell her that this man did this to me, or this woman did this to me. So the kids are a little bit more redundant. Reluctant on coming forward with the information. What I also find is that, you have social workers that I've had an occasion where I've had one or two, because I'm a divorced mom, and I find that they would come on board, and a lot of times they drop the ball where they don't call you, they don't follow up, you got to call them. So I find that there's always, there's weak links within the social services, weak links on the educating part. So if we don't have that, I just believe that talking about it on a radio is one thing, but if you could do it coming in on the levels that I just mentioned, I believe that, the kids will have a greater part in saying, this is not appropriate behavior. I read about this, that they would know that they're falling into the wrong, going down the wrong path, that this is where this is leading to. So education is a very big key on every area, because even in school, we'll say children are that child bad, eh? And when we find out maybe something of this nature is going on in the home, or the child is suffering from attention deficit disorder, and then we don't want to discuss it because that's mental health, and first what parents are going to think. But would you not rather the kid be aware, let that child live a very productive and robust life if they so need those things in order to become great, instead of us as society branding it and saying, that child bad, eh? But anyway, Dwayne, I'll let you all go. Thanks to your panel. Good show today. But I hope you all take what I called it about, as in keep it as food for thought.
Definitely.
Maybe we could take these things to the next level.
Yes, ma'am.
Can we, sorry, caller, just to speak to that, if you don't mind just hanging on. From an education perspective, there's actually quite a lot that has been going on. The Child Protection Unit has been introduced through the Ministry of Education to all the public schools, and that goes from pretty much kindergarten through until about 5th grade, where child protection, child safety lessons are being taught. The education law has also changed to make it mandatory that all schools, independently of whether they're public or private or even early education centers, teach child safety lessons as well. And there has been a massive drive to get people to understand the importance of developing policies, practices, and procedures, and working with the schools to be able to do that from the Ministry of Education. We are working with the Ministry of Education when it comes to delivering a violence prevention program for older youth. And I know that they have a few other gaps that they want to cover when it comes to giving older kids, so grade 7 and up, information about, safety, bullying, as well as child sexual abuse, physical abuse, neglect. So there's a lot that's going on from the perspective of children, and even when it comes to training for staff. The part where we come in as part of our multi-agency working group, there's 3 agencies that are here today, the Red Cross, the RCIPS, and the EAP, but we also work with Health Services Authority, the Special Needs Foundation, and Sans Creative Studio, and the Ministry of Education. Is where we offer like lunch and learns, awareness and education training, darkness to light, and a couple of other things. And really and truly, the only part that keeps us from coming into all schools is really an invitation. We have done this to several schools already at the invitation of PTAs. So we encourage that if you have a PTA and you want to get us into your schools, by all means, send me an email at deputy@redcross.org.ky. And it's not just the 3 of us, it's actually about 9 of us that will actually come out and, answer questions, the panel, and talk a little bit more about this, because we're very much, this entire multi-agency approach that we have here is very grassroots, and it's very focused on education and awareness. So that's where we're trying to get at, and, not only to make kids more aware, but as I mentioned earlier in the show, our aim is to put the responsibility of child protection back on the shoulders of adults, and to try to stop these things from happening in the first place. So I appreciate your phone call, but by all means, if anything, my phone number is 916-1742, and my email is deputy@redcross.org.ky. If that helps, and you have your own spheres of influence. We've gone to workplaces, we've gone to church groups, we've gone to youth serving organizations. We will pretty much go anywhere that we're invited.
Right. Or uninvited.
Yeah. Well, thank you.
We still show up.
Very much, Mom. And certainly we'll remind you of those opportunities. But let's just pause quickly. When we come back, more talk today.
Hi, I'm remodeling our bathroom. I have a few questions. Sure. What are some ideas to make my bathroom feel larger? How do I know if I'm picking the right vanity? How do I choose a new toilet or a new countertop? Also, the lighting is terrible. Can I put a window or a skylight? And do I really need an exhaust fan?
You've come to the right place. At Brand Source, we custom design kitchen and baths, and our talented design team can help answer your questions. Whether you're looking for a modern, functional family bathroom or a luxurious personal retreat, we'll help create that beautiful space that makes your home yours. And if you're in a rush for a new look and have a limited budget, our ready-to-install bathroom vanities, built with solid wood and countertops of the finest materials, are a quick and easy remodeling solution.
For the very best in custom-designed kitchens and baths, visit Brand Source Home Gallery on Dorsey Drive, Industrial Park, Cayman's new kitchen and bath center.
Healthcare Pharmacy, caring about your health for the past 25 years. Radio Cayman's premier health show.
Alzheimer's and dementia, are they the same disorder?
Yeah, I think that's a very important question.
For the Health of It with Tara Bush. For the Health of It with Tara Bush.
Is heard on Saturdays at 9:30 a.m. and on Wednesdays at 7 p.m. Brought to you by Healthcare Pharmacy in Grand Harbor, where they care about your health. Transfer and refill your prescription online. Visit healthcarepharmacy.com. or call 947-8900. Healthcare Pharmacy, now with a new and second location in Governor's Square. The new Healthcare Pharmacy in Governor's Square is open Monday to Friday, 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. and Saturday, 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. Healthcare Pharmacy, where they care about your health.
The time has come for there only can be one. The World Cup Finals, Sunday, July 15th. Will the 98 champions France, led by Mbappe and Griezmann, exercise dominance again? Or will Mandzukic and Luka Modric make history, claiming the cup in Croatia's first appearance in the World Cup Finals? Watch the action live this Sunday at 10 a.m. at Cave Bar and Lounge in Northside, with happy hour specials from 12 p.m. to close. Cave Bar and Lounge on Freixam Road in the Old Nico Norte. There's only one place you want to be for the World Cup Finals. France versus Croatia at the Cave Bar and Lounge in Northside.
Kia Soul passes it to Kia Sportage. Sportage makes a stylish move over to the sleek Optima. Optima then flicks it across to the 7-seat Sorrento. Sorrento heads it. Goal! Kia!
It's time to score with the entire 2018 Kia lineup at GT Motors. Get up to $3,000 cash back. The first 50 customers will score a World Cup replica football and mascot. Hurry, it's the best thing that's happened to car buyers all year. The 2018 Kia clearance sale, only at GT Motors on Godfrey Nixon Way. Kia, driving football fever.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners' participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon. Welcome back to Talk Today. Thank you for joining us, and certainly appreciate the opportunity. And as we continue our discussion, we recognize it is all of our responsibility to ensure that our children are safe, and protection does indeed start here. Ms. Carlina, Mr. Kevin, Ms. Cindy. Now, the caller just now, if it's not inappropriate for those who just joined us, if you are an organization, private school or not, a church, a youth group, maybe a group within the workplace, you guys will go in there and make a presentation at lunchtime, in the evenings, whenever, right?
Yeah. We actually, and like I said, the reason why we started this working group 6 years ago now was really to try to fill in some of the gaps when it came to education and awareness, and also to make consistent, the messages that we were sending out. So I'm actually really proud of the work that we've done, because we do have a lot to offer. So we offer the Lunch and Learns, which can be 45 to 60 minutes. So these are presentations that we do for an hour, whether it's during the day or in the evenings as well. We do that. We offer Darkness to Light Stewards of Children training. That's twice a month, every month, on a Tuesday evening and a Saturday morning, 2.5 hours. Pre-registration is required, but it's free of cost. We do as well offer twice a year. We offer a policy development workshop. So if you're an organization that is concerned about this and how do you actually get these policies, practices, and procedures in place, we've developed something that helps you, and we give you sort of that one-on-one time with us to help you, because it's not just about giving you the template and saying go forth and do, but rather getting you to understand more about it. And this is in line with the same things that the Ministry of Education has done. So it's not as if we're doing our own thing and the Ministry of Education is doing something different and somebody else is doing something different. So we wanted to make sure that it was anchored somewhere, especially within government, so that there was consistency when it came to the standard. So, so we do have, we created a DVD tool that has additional information also made available free of cost. So there are a lot of resources that we've been able to create with Sans Creative Studio. I don't know if you've are familiar now with Bobo and Titi, the little green turtle and blue iguana. So we created a child safety lesson for children ages 3 to 6 using Bobo and Titi, and with local voice talent, local children are used and whatnot. It's this little animation, and we have this in the lesson plan, the actual video, posters, and we're working on activity kits and puzzles to be able to give this to schools and early education centers as part, so that they can meet their requirement in law. So we're really we've been working really hard when it comes to that, and we're mindful of the fact that not everyone is as neck deep into all of this as we are, but it's about getting the message out that there are resources, and even if you're unaware as to what it could be, you can call any of our agencies and people can point you in the right direction.
Now, from that perspective, as we go into the summer, many of us will go to some of the same sort of offerings that we've had for all these years. Our children will just be in a different age group. Some of us will be looking at new offerings as activities to nurture and engage our children. Some will just occupy their time so that at least we know they're supposed to be over here. Are there things that we as parents and guardians should be looking at to making sure that, okay, this is, even if it's a new place or a place that's been there forever, we went there when we were younger, for instance, things that we should be looking at and asking?
I'll let the other parents answer.
There's a lot of things. I mean, depending on, again, looking at the environment that they're going into, is it a camp where it's out in the open and there's a lot of, it's going to be observable by others? That's one thing that you look for. If the activities if they have a schedule, an actual schedule that they're going to be following, and they have a plan for the children. You look at the ratio and how many, adults to child. You, of course, always ask questions about, where are you getting this? Is this additional staff that you've hired? Is this staff that you've kept on from the summer? What kind of background do they have? Is it early childhood education kind of certificate? That not only that sort of things, like what is their experience with children, but you want to ask sort of about what kind of procedures did they go through in hiring them? Or are they just simply, are they volunteers what kind of screening? Are they, is it just someone that wants to volunteer for the summer and they didn't really put them through the same sort of scrutiny that they would as a paid member of staff? So those are a few things just off the top of my head.
Yeah, no, and it's important. We've created a flyer that is 6 questions for summer safety, or basically any after-school activity and anything else. You can find it on our Facebook page. We'll make it available through Radio Cayman so that you guys can share it as well. And the idea is to ask about all those things pertaining screening and hiring, the safe environment policies, the ratios, the mandatory reporting policy. It's important for people to understand that they have a responsibility in law as providers of these services to young people. And it's also a good indication, depending on when you're asking the questions, if they're kind of like, what are you talking about, that maybe this is not the camp that you want to leave your kids in.
That's always respect, and whether that's an established camp or one that just started up, it doesn't mean that it's good or not good, but you should still ask the questions if you have never asked or not been satisfied.
Yeah. Yes, because there are no standards for camps, right? There are no national standards for youth serving organizations in general, and with camps, like I said earlier, camps were really the driving force behind us doing what we're doing, just because it has essentially become such a free-for-all in a lot of different ways. Camps pop up left, right, and center. There are all kinds of organizations that are starting camps, and it's because there is a massive need, because you have all these kids and not everyone can travel for 2.5 months, but also because, let's be realistic, parents are willing to pay through the eyeball in order to be able to get a kid in camp. Camps are expensive, so they're good money makers from a business perspective too. And because there is no national oversight right now, which has kind of been, And no matter how many times we say this, there's still a lot that needs to be done. And I've been doing this work for 6 years. And, when my mom and I were having this conversation yesterday. Like, what do you mean? Like, who can we report this to? I'm like, nobody. Mm-hmm. There's nobody that's actually checking to see that people are qualified, that people are trained, that, the environment is safe and all those things. So it's up to us as parents to ask those questions and make an informed choice as much as we can. And to some degree, sometimes it's cost prohibitive, and therefore you have to go with your sort of best option. But you should still be voicing your concerns, just at least so that there's a record of it somewhere, that, I was concerned about X, Y, and Z.
Mm-hmm. If I could add something on that as well, as a parent, I guess, is that first question. If you go to whatever camp and just ask them what their child safeguarding policy is, if the first response back is, I'm sorry, what are you talking about? I'd be turning around and going out the door saying thank you very much. But the saying before about the how people access that and the volunteers and people like that, there is work going on in the background. I know that because I'm on a couple of different committees and meetings about that, especially from the National Sports Association. So there's a horizon there that's a positive horizon, and we're looking at having these national standards, and we all know there is work towards that, but we still need to all be pushing for that to happen sooner rather than later. And that's not to rush a policy, but it's to make sure the correct policy is in place. And make sure that every single possible camp that's set up, has the correct safeguarding. It's not about. I know economics comes into it, but the parents' decision shouldn't be purely that's the cheapest camp and therefore I'm going with that one. It should be the holistic approach of
that's the most expensive, so that must be the best one.
Equally, you're right. But is my child safe at this camp? In more ways than one. Is it next to a main road, for instance? There's all sorts of safeguarding that we're looking at, not just perpetrators accessing the children, but just general safety.
Place of safety. All right. A final break for this segment, then stay tuned for Talk Today.
At Seaboard Marine, customers often ask us questions about their shipments.
Hi, I'm thinking of buying a car from the States. Which port do you ship out of?
Hi, we ship out of Miami, Houston, and Brooklyn. Just let us know your port of choice and we can provide you with a quotation and answer any questions you may have on insuring and protecting your vehicle during its journey.
Shipping shore to shore,
The time is now. The speed is here. March to the beat of the mobile revolution with Flow 4G LTE and a prepaid mobile combo plan. Activate a Flow prepaid mobile combo plan to get calling minutes and data in one convenient package. And every plan comes with double data. Enjoy the proven best overall experience in Cayman with a Flow prepaid mobile combo plan. Now with double data, coverage, value, speed. Flow 4G LTE. Always connected, always faster. Visit discoverflow.ky. Terms and conditions apply.
Tune in to Radio Cayman every morning at 7:20 a.m. for your daily weather update. Proudly brought to you by Miller's Plumbing and Accessories. With over 47 years of experience, they'll get the job done for you on time. Free estimate. Miller's Plumbing and Accessories. Call them at 949-4709 for a free estimate.
Important notice for all contractors, including general, civil, residential, building, and trade contractors. The Department of Planning would like to inform you that in order to pull permits and request inspections, your company must be registered with the Builders Board by July 31st, 2018. Failure to register with the Builders Board will prevent you from seeking permits and inspections. Fees and applications can be found online at www.planning.ky. All applications and fees for all contractors must be submitted by July 31st, 2018.
Talk today.
But I do have some questions.
Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners' participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Good afternoon. Welcome back to Talk Today. Thanks again for listening and participating. Especially thanks to our panelists for helping me through this discussion. And I think really appreciate it, Miss Cindy, Mr. Kevin, Miss Carlino. We all, honestly, every single one of us, I think, want to do our very best to ensure that our children are safe. But Kevin, as you were saying during the break, sometimes it's not just the people; it's the actual location. How close is this place where the camp, for instance, to the main road, to a body of water, whether that's a pool or a pond. How are children being transported from that place to maybe an activity, as great as that activity is going to be? Are they getting there piled on the back of,
And on the back of that, we don't want to wrap children up in cotton wool either and bubble wrap. They have to go out and explore. They have to, dig in the dirt and eat worms, as I used to do when I was young.
Explains it.
But, there is an element of that you can't shield a child from every single, danger out there in many shapes or forms. But you can take certain precautions, and it's, health and safety is a key word, isn't it? And I would like to think that if any child of mine and, my 4-year-old daughter goes to a daycare centre, and, I do look around it all the time going, what are the vulnerabilities here? And luckily, she wouldn't be there if I wasn't confident in the staff and the physical surroundings. But I do think that sometimes parents just see it just as a convenience and a drop-off and get the kids out of the way sort of thing. And I hope that doesn't sound too much of a criticism, but we have to educate those parents to just start thinking critically of where they are leaving the children.
As you were saying, sorry, Ms. Carney, I was just thinking that's what more of us parents need to do, to share the responsibility, to be those extra hands and eyes, and as we go to a place, not to be, critical, to be constructive in our analysis. So maybe there's a broken fence, for argument's sake, and it's not so much that the children may go out into the pasture, but what's in the pasture may come into that space. But what can we do to get that culture where society looks at safety as with the norm, and it's all of our responsibility.
Well, it's the whole take the village, right? So like Kevin's saying, if you're going to, we as parents, we take recommendations from each other, right? So, it doesn't take long for somewhere to, some bad experience gets told around and shared. And so next thing, that's your greatest resource, is to have a good relationship with the parents that are having to access the different facilities. And I think, like you said, like the most expensive doesn't necessarily mean the best, right? And I think, just to touch on a point that I feel is important, is that, it's about the staff and their training and that sort of thing, but also know that there's staff that will take your questions and your concerns seriously as a parent, right? You want them to give you that reassurance that, the different things that you're asking about is for a reason, not just for, to be nosy or to intrude, but it's about children, and it's about all the children, not just, your own.
I think too, Carlo?
No, I was just thinking in general when it comes to issues pertaining to safety. I think it's the cultural shift when it comes to prevention instead of cure, and this notion of stopping things before they happen. It's a constant dialogue for us at the Red Cross, because we talk about it when it comes to child abuse, we talk about it when it comes to lifeguarding, we talk about it when it comes to disaster management. So it's this sort of ongoing thing, and it's just like, and now summer kind of has all of that wrapped up into one. Think about the summer activities and whatnot. I mean, my kid was doing something completely unrelated, and it's like, oh, bring your bathing suits because we're going to go swimming today. It's like, how many lifeguards do you have? None. Okay, then no. Then no, because it's just like, it's taking certain things into account, and it's like it's not, there are kids who are coming who don't necessarily feel confident in the water, and even if they have the little buoys or something else, you're out on the beach and whatnot. And this happened to us. I was with him enjoying the waves, and there was this kid who was in full on the what are they called?
Jacket.
The life jackets, and on there, but so uncomfortable in the water that anytime a wave hit his face, he'd panic, and his first thing was to actually push down whoever was in front of him to get himself up. And it's just like, and that's instinct. Yeah. And it's like, but if you don't have someone who's on the lookout for that, if you don't, and he ended up coming and holding on to me, and I'm like, it's okay, it's no problem, I'm good, I'm tall enough to reach. And he's like, are you a lifeguard? I'm like, actually, yes.
I am today.
So that's it. That was it. It's like, didn't matter what happened. His hand was coming over my shoulder and he was pulling. I'm like, that's okay. I want to make sure you're safe. But it's taking that truly holistic approach. We use that word so often. I swear it is a cliche, but it's just like, but we need to look at it. And that's why we start off with this notion of this safeguarding from this aspect of it. But the idea is that once you start looking at things through those safeguarding goggles and those lenses of, protection, that that it's going to expand to all aspects of your, operation.
Yeah, and as you say that too, I think sometimes as parents in particular, two things immediately come to mind. We're easily placated by that person who comes out, the principal at the school, the youth pastor, the coach, who is endearing and charming and charismatic. And I use the word placate. Let's try to pacify us with something. We're not willing to question because of the people or because of the tone of that person saying. Yeah. But equally, and perhaps even just as bad, that parent who is actively engaged, who's going to be lifting up the rugs and checking, behind the door and making sure and asking those questions. Oh, here she comes again, troublemaker. Mm-hmm. Instead of saying, wait, let me stand in line here. She has some good questions. I want the answers. Because that person obviously has some knowledge. Those of us who have brothers who knows a little bit more about a car, we're going to ask that brother or that sister, all right? But we got a news break. Are we going to be able to share more with our listeners when we come back, Ms. Carlina, you think?
I think so. I think it
seems
as if everybody wants
Are we
to
going to share some bits and bites and treats during the break? We might just do that. I don't know. Stay tuned for Talk Today.
Satisfaction is guaranteed 24 hours a day, whether it's music or information.
From Grand Cayman to Cayman Brac to Little Cayman, we've got you covered.
You ever hear a thing like that?
Radio Cayman in the Cayman Islands.
Radio Cayman. Radio Cayman's newsroom. Headline. These are the biggest stories right now.
With your latest headlines, I'm April Cummings. East End Library Branch Manager Sandra Ebanks is the recipient of the Chief Officer's Choice Certificate for May. In a recent ceremony, Acting Chief Officer Tammy Ebanks presented the certificate at the Georgetown Library in front of her colleagues, managers, and Ministry of Education staff. Ms. Ebanks is recognized for starting numerous programs, including Smartest Reader and Word a Day Challenge, as well as uniquely themed programs in the library services designed to foster an interest in learning. In international news, 12 Russian intelligence officers hacked into the Democratic National Committee and the Clinton presidential campaign in the run-up to the 2016 election, releasing tens of thousands of stolen communications in a brazen effort by a foreign government to meddle in U.S. politics. That's according to a grand jury indictment announced today. The indictment comes days before U.S. President Donald Trump holds a summit with Russian President Vladimir Putin. President Trump, meantime, has departed Windsor Castle after tea with Queen Elizabeth II. It was Trump's first meeting with the monarch. Britain's national news agency said they spent 47 minutes getting acquainted over tea inside the castle, 17 minutes longer than scheduled. The president then returned to London by helicopter for the Air Force One flight to Scotland. Trump and his wife planned a private weekend at his golf property before his meeting on Monday in Finland with President Putin. Those are your headlines from Radio Cayman's newsroom. I'm April Cummings.
Radio Cayman, the voice of the Cayman Islands. What's happening in your community? News and information, music and more. You can find us. www.radiocayman.gov.ky. Like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter. Radio Cayman is your choice, your voice for today's biggest news. Radio Cayman.
The Cayman Contractors Association would like to urge all contractors to register for the Builders Law by completing the application process. The application is online at www.planning.gov.ky, or the form can be collected from the Planning Department. Do not miss the July 31st deadline and be unable to pull a permit for your job. Ensure your company is licensed, as the public wants to hire licensed contractors. Join the Cayman Contractors Association and stay current on code courses, training, and industry news. The Cayman Contractors Association, building a better Cayman.
The time has come for there only can be one. The World Cup Finals, Sunday, July 15th. Will the 98 champions France, led by Mbappe and Griezmann, exercise dominance again? Or will Mandzukic and Luka Modric make history, claiming the cup in Croatia's first appearance in the World Cup Finals? Watch the action live this Sunday at 10 a.m. at Cave Bar and Lounge in Northside, with happy hour specials from 12 p.m. to close. Cave Bar and Lounge on Franksound Road in the Old Nico Norte. There's only one place you want to be for the World Cup Finals: France versus Croatia at the Cave Bar and Lounge in Northside.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners' participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Good afternoon. Welcome back to Talk Today. 949-8037 or 1-800-534-8255. In the studio, we have Cindy, Kevin, and Carolina. Now, Miss Carolina, it's wonderful that a topic such as this, the information that we can share can. Another word that unfortunately has become a bit of a cliche. Empower, but still, it's a serious issue, and yet if we can present it in a way that give people a chance to maybe not be turned off by it, because it is sensitive, it is involved, but if we can get information in somehow, I always make the joke, taking your medicine, but wash down a little bit of sugar or honey, you might, take the medicine a little bit, more willingly, as it were. Perhaps we need to be able to do that in this instance, because it can become challenging.
No, it is, and it's obviously, it's difficult for everybody. I mean, it's just like the work that both Cindy and Kevin do is a lot more front lines than even the work that I do, and it's just a lot of the things that I try to coordinate, and even in talking to families if they call me and all of that, like I'm not front line in that way, and it's just like, and I know that what the group ends up doing for each other really is a lot of this sort of psychological support and this notion of checking in and everything else. But, you can't beat around the bush when it comes to these things happening. There really is no way to fully sugarcoat it, because it is something that should make us feel uncomfortable. Yes. But it should not be something that makes us feel uncomfortable and then we turn away from it to just be like, I can't handle it. But rather it should be something that actually moves us to action, because there's nothing that we're asking of, everyone, to do that is so difficult. We're asking you to ask questions. We're asking you to learn more about it. We're asking you, to kind of check into those things, have conversations with your young people. And if you need help doing any of those things, come and get, access to resources that we offer. The Family Resource Center does a lot of work with families and parenting skills, talk early, talk often. How do you talk about, things pertaining to sex and sexuality with kids from the time that they're born, essentially, all the way through until, for the rest of their lives, really, because that's the kind of dialogue that you want to make sure that you're ongoing, because that's what happens. How do you talk to kids about safety? There are all these, there's a tremendous amount of resources that we've now been able to put together, and because of sort of this, additional partnerships and working better together, we're more aware of what is there. So and in this age of technology, it really shouldn't be that difficult to be able to access things, correct things, local things. So that's what we're trying to do. So yeah, I mean, it's, we're always going to make people cringe when it comes to the topics that we're talking about. And we promise that as soon as we've eradicated all of that, we will stop talking about it, and it's just like, because
something Cindy shared earlier is that, as parents, as adults, we share information. You've been to watch a movie, you went to a new restaurant, or you tried a particular item on a menu. Good, we're going to share it. Now, if we can make information that we have accurate, timely, about things of this nature, just like we share all the other, seemingly sometimes inconsequential things, then that makes more of our friends or family, that circle, much more informed, and then we get to that norm.
Yeah. And you're talking about movies. Did you hear about the issue that was with that kids film, Show Dogs?
Yes.
So there was basically, I don't know if, so there's a children's film, which is, I guess, kind of humans and animation together or something along those lines. And there was a massive issue that was brought out by some advocacy groups, parental advocacy groups, because the whole point of it was basically that this police dog was going undercover into this dog show and whatnot. But the whole kind of premise of the film and what it relied on was basically the way in which the dog had to allow the judges to check his private parts, and that the whole thing was about him going to his happy place while the judges were checking the dog's private parts and whatnot because he couldn't blow his cover. And this got through a series of, I can't imagine, from the person who wrote the script all the way through to the one who greenlighted it for it to go to the movies, and no one caught on to the potential messages. Because again, this isn't just sort of your, the dog, it's like a talking dog kind of situation, a little animated thing. And these messages, which for those of us who are in the field, are like, you're kind of setting kids up to to be abused or to normalize that level of behavior. If they're seeing something like that, and especially the terminology as well, this notion of going to the happy place or kind of checking out, well, this is happening, is something that we know the perpetrators end up using when it comes to the kids, So this was something that actually was met with a massive storm of, parents saying that this is not okay, advocates saying this is not okay. And I think if I'm correct, they actually went back and had to recut the film in order for it to be re-released. So there is power in knowledge. There is power when it comes to these things, and it's important for us to be aware of it because, again, it can come up in so many ways that people aren't expecting it, and you're taking your kid and you're thinking, oh, this is fine, but, you need to be aware of the messages.
This is it,
And picking up on our point that was mentioned then about addressing it with children as well, and the document I just presented there, which we'll make available to you in PDF, is using child-appropriate language as well, and addressing that child at whatever age, from birth really onwards to educate them throughout their formative years, because by the time they're 15 and 16, that's way too late. They've probably engaged in some sort of sexual activity. We need, as parents and as educators, to make the children aware of these things early on. You use the word empowerment through education, if getting away from the cliche, but using appropriate language at the appropriate time, of course, and making children aware, and making sure that it's not a difficult conversation to have with somebody if it becomes part of your parental sort of safeguarding of your own child. I mean, how any parent could shy away from that, thinking of the worst case scenario, you would want to do that, I'm quite sure.
This is the thing, we can't be, as one of my sisters always shares, lazy parents. We need to be involved, engaged, informed, educated, and actively, part of that child's life.
One thing you were saying about, we've kind of talked about a bit about their online activity and that sort of thing. And so something I saw recently, I think Carolina, did you send it to me about how the YouTube algorithm has changed?
Yeah.
And how, and I've seen it myself firsthand, how, you're on there and the child is watching something, even they're little, they're on a phone, they're just being occupied for a few minutes, whatever it is. But of course, they know what to do and they're switching from one show to another. And so the algorithm, I guess, has changed now where, people can put in however many different keywords when they upload a video. And so children are ended up getting exposed to graphic images of violence or, and using like characters that they're familiar with or animals and things like that. So not even just violence, but sexualized images and that sort of thing. Just for my own example, like, you can, from the background, you can hear like there's that song, a child's song playing, but it's actually what they're seeing. And I went in and checked, thankfully, and he saw, my son's 3, he was watching a dinosaur rip apart animals and that sort of thing. And it was all very graphic, and and it's this sing-songy, like Old MacDonald Had a Farm music. So if you're not really watching what they're watching, you're just listening, it's not enough, right? So that's even for small kids, but then, the other kids they're on YouTube all the time, and we have to be so aware of what's out there.
And there are things that are so sinister that even the people who actually start off with the cartoons put in something else in the middle there because it changes completely. And that was something that was coming up. And it's just, we just have to be generally more aware. And it's just like, and the technology is always going to make us, try to keep up with things and all of that. But it's just like, it's about, there's no alternative to, to that level of.
I think it just shows us that as a parent today, it's probably not easier in a sense. It doesn't have to be harder. We just got to be more engaged, more willing to have open dialogue and conversation with our children.
And that's where the agency partners come in, because certainly the Family Resource Centre, I think we alluded to it before, they will give parents advice about how to engage children more away from the screens, almost have a blackout on the screens really for certain periods of time. We cannot and we should not stop children going and using technology. That's not what we're saying here, but use it appropriately, use it age appropriately, but also engage your children in some outdoor activities as well, and make sure that they are engaged in that way as well.
Indeed. Well, phone lines are indeed open as we talk to both Miss Cindy, Mr. Kevin, and Miss Carolina. Let's go to our phones. Good afternoon and welcome. You're on Talk Today.
Good afternoon, Sterling.
Good afternoon, sir. Welcome.
Good afternoon to you guests.
How are you today, sir?
I'm good, and hope everybody up there good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sound like it's going to be good. I would like to say or ask them a question.
Yes, sir.
Can a 10-year-old buy a pack of cigarettes and put that in his pocket and sit down up in the house and smoke it? Legal, and that would be legal, and the parents would allow it?
No.
Or you get a bottle of rum and just a little small, the play bottle, the little one that them girls sneaks into places and things so they don't buy him a drink.
No.
Could he get that and be in the corner sitting down, his father or mother would watch him drinking all that?
No, of course not.
Okay, well, you see the thing called the internet is way worse than that, because the internet can introduce those children to those same things, plus can expose them to all kind of things. And we are allowing the children because the telecommunication gangsters, and don't cut me off for calling them gangsters, that's all they are. They come on the radio and tell you that these getting this internet and things will make your children so smart. So we buy into that. Give the children these internet, and they get exposed to all kind of stuff. The people don't even understand. See, when a child gets like 12, 13, at the time their hormones going to start tripping, which is tripping in a little earlier these days due to the food and all those chemicals that they getting exposed to. But when the child gets 12, 13, 14, which 14 was after he passed 14, before it was quite legal for the girl to engage in little activities because the age of consent was 14 up until Miss Daphne Horrith got into the legislature, and I think she's the one that changed it from 14 to 16, right? But what happening now, we expose now children to all these sports and activities. It gets the children to develop a little better, quicker, and once you exercise, and then your shaping will develop a little quicker. The coach that grooming her, man or woman, then the time gets kind of fascinated with this child and stuff and starts mess with them. You don't hear too much reports about women doing this. All I hear, we listen to her, is mainly men. But what happened, the shame and different things for the child even to say a man. But you imagine a woman doing it to him, they're going to feel more ashamed. And the woman got different strategies for man. And we should try to get these children to be supervised, not let free on the internet. And the only time they should be able to go on the internet is when a parent is supervising them. And when they finish with their project, turn it off, and you don't take it upstairs with your laptop and these things. We need to plan that out, because the children is getting so exposed to these things that they can tell you everything. What you talking is foolishness to them. They know it all.
You raise.
And I told them, listen to that, saw the videos in your talk. Is no good to them.
Yes, sir.
Because they're done convinced that they're on the good side. This man or woman giving them top-ups and different things. And after we win the football game, we're going out to Burger King and we go into this place. And that's what's going on. And we be trusting all these people with the little children. They trusted the Bible there.
Yeah. As I listen to you, man, you've pretty much summarized all the salient points today. The grooming, the lack of supervision by parents, the need for parents to be involved. Hopefully, if they didn't hear what was shared by the panel, they certainly would have, taken on board your very, succinct way. Anything final, sir?
Yeah, I would like to say that the people that doing the job is trying their best, but they're going to have to get a little more equipment and a little less equipment what a fool the children with a couple days ago. They tell them that Snapchat would make the pictures fade away. Well, the children take naked, nude pictures to send to friends. Look, people out on the street selling their pictures. And the same internet, people can take and manipulate a dog, make him kick fleas, jump up in the air like Superman, kick fleas, so they can take a little child picture and put her in porn on a porn show, and she's not even there. She wasn't even engaged in the sex, but they can do it with her on the internet.
This is the technology, man, and you say we need to be involved. Hey, thank you, sir. Thank you very much for that. And that gentleman is very much. Can we, respectfully, ask you for your final thoughts as we wrap up after this final break? Please stay tuned for Talk Today.
Optical Outlook is so wicked.
They're brilliant. Tremendous.
So hot.
They're awesome. Yo, them cool.
They're sweet.
Just ice, mate.
I love them like cooked food.
Head to Optical Outlook and find many designer brands for men and women. Sun safety and eye health care never look so good. They'll be able to help you find the best fit for your face and budget. Call 746-2020 and book your eye exam today. Come see the difference with Optical Outlook and make sure to follow them on Facebook and Instagram.
Accidents can happen at any time and can leave a strain on you and your family. Be prepared with Workman's Compensation Insurance from Fidelity Insurance. Our brokers can help you meet your government requirements and ensure that you are covered should an accident happen. Don't leave it to chance. Email Fidelity Insurance at insure@fidelitykman.com for a free quote. Get Workman's Compensation from Fidelity Insurance and get some peace of mind. Fidelity, we're good for you.
The time has come for there only can be one. The World Cup Finals, Sunday, July 15th. Will the 98 champions France, led by Mbappe and Griezmann, exercise dominance again? Or will Mandzukic and Luka Modric make history, claiming the cup in Croatia's first appearance in the World Cup Finals? Watch the action live this Sunday at 10 a.m. at Cave Bar and Lounge in Northside, with happy hour specials from 12 p.m. to close. Cave Bar and Lounge on Freixam Road in the Old Nico Norte. There's only one place you want to be for the World Cup Finals. France versus Croatia at the Cave Bar and Lounge in Northside.
Nursing, education, social work, media studies, hospitality, electrical, plumbing, AC. Wow, I didn't even know that the University College of the Cayman Islands offered all that.
Yes, all that and more, as well as event management and QuickBooks. They also did customized training for our staff last month. Hey, didn't your son just graduate from high school? Take him so he can apply for the fall semester.
Pursue your academic and professional goals at UCCI. Admissions are ongoing. Classes start August 27th. Visit them or call 623-8224 to learn more.
This weekend, Cayman Up Close, a weekly special feature from Radio Cayman News.
I'm Shanda Gallego.
Shanda Gallego goes behind the scenes with Cayman's newsmakers, artists, and emerging talent to get their unique and personal experience, their real story.
This week, we turn the spotlight.
Sundays at noon, 6:10 p.m. and 10:10 p.m. and always online at radiocayman.gov.ky. Tune in for Cayman Up Close.
Cayman Up Close, brought to you by Cayman National Bank, proudly serving the Cayman Islands for over 40 years.
Talk today.
But I do have some questions.
Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon and welcome back to Talk Today. 949-8037 or 1-800-534-8255. Where special thanks and the opportunity for every month to have had this conversation. Ms. Carlina, Mr. Kevin, Ms. Cindy for joining us. I believe we have one more call online. Good afternoon, you're on Talk Today.
Good afternoon to you, Sterling Dwayne, and to your distinguished guest. I just joined listening into the show.
Yes, sir.
I'd just like to say this real quickly. We're living in a very different world, very different Cayman. Cayman has more or less changed more in 40 years, and every other country I can think of has changed in over 100 years. So, one of the things that is lacking is courage. Very important to have courage to say that this is how things are going to be. Before, we had a lot of electronics and so forth, but things were censored. There were people with the courage to censor things. Songs were censored. They were only played in barrooms or on the jukebox and nightclubs. were the only places where you could hear certain songs, people dance certain music, and certain jokes were told. Now they can pick it up easily on the internet, as the gentleman and you all were saying, and so forth. And in fact, it's too late now to change things, and we have created these problems because of lack of courage and that sense of decency. We have descended it to an abyss of bacchanalia. And we can't climb out of that so easily. A few will, but our legislators have lost the courage, and primarily our people have lost the courage to say this is how things must be done, and this is the way we want it, regardless of how the other countries may want things, because, trust me, we will pay for this as it goes on. We will pay for it with losing our children to these things and many things and more. Because we said we're giving them control of certain things, the internet, they can do this, they can Google this, WhatsApp, Wi-Fi, Skype, just send pictures of each other nude or whatever it is. That's where I've descended to because of that simple word. The courage to do things and make certain decisions that will not allow these things. We can do it. It doesn't matter how smart electronics get. It's only created by human beings. I wish people would read those two famous paragraphs from Mr. Ian Fleming, written 61 years ago. He told us what we were then in Cayman. I'm talking about Cayman. And what we as Caymanians would become. Yes, thank you very much. Have a wonderful afternoon. I listen.
Thank you, sir. And enjoy your weekend as well. Well, the writing has been on the wall. Societies are changed. We're told our population since 1980 has doubled every 18 years. But as the caller reminds us, sticking our heads in the sand isn't a panacea. It's a different Cayman. These conversations are difficult but necessary. Mr. Kevin?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And I'll give my summing up, really, because I really endorse what the caller and other callers have said. And really, what I'd like to a lot of it is about parental responsibility. We can't shy away from the fact that parents do have that primary role, primary responsibility. Some need assistance with that, and that's why the agencies are out there to assist. But we need to prepare the kids for the outside world. That's what we need to do in this modern era. In the same way that when I was growing up, the era that I was growing up, I had to be prepared for that outside world, and we're all in that same boat there. So whatever generation you're from, you were prepared for the outside world. And yes, we romanticize about the past, but we're going forward. So prepare the kids for the outside world, and crucially, talk about the topics and talk about them often and regularly with the children. Don't underestimate the child's ability to engage in a adult conversation with you about the issues that they face, because they're going through insecurities themselves, and they need that foundation of parental foundation to be able to discuss those, whether it be relationships, online activity, should I be drinking, should I be smoking. They're looking at you as guardians and role models, so be that role model for them. Talk to them and talk to them regularly.
Miss Cindy?
It's a lot. But I think just kind of what the caller had said too about the courage. We need courage to speak out. We need courage to challenge. We need courage to ask the questions that other people don't ask or are afraid to ask. And the in the spirit of community to make it a safer place, because we're creating an environment where we all have courage to, again, ask the questions that are hard to ask, and we all can be that sort of beacon of, hope or information. Even if someone doesn't know where to go or what to do when something doesn't seem right, then maybe they'll remember something that another parent had said or another adult had said, or just sharing in the spirit of this issue is that it's for all of us. You don't have to have children to care about children, or to put in safeguarding measures, or to ask the questions, or to look out for another child. You have to just care about children. And I think that's why Darkness to Light is such an important training program. You don't need to be a parent. You just have to care about children. And it's the best 2.5 hours that you'll ever spend.
He just looks at me. No, I think we started this topic today talking about perpetrators and pedophiles, and talking about the fact that in 90% of child sexual abuse cases, the perpetrator is known to the victim and their family, and therefore this is not an other. These are people who have access to our children because we have entrusted them with that. And so right now, in light of, summer camps and everything else, this isn't about freaking people out. This isn't about making people paranoid. But if you haven't yet, take the time to ask the right questions of your youth service providers. Ask your camps about, their policies, their practices, their procedures. Ask where you can find it. Ask them how we can discuss it. Ask them to, whatever it is that you need to do to feel a bit more confident in that your child is being well taken care of. And it's not just your right, it's your responsibility as a parent. So, and if you want a bit more guidance in terms of how to get that information or what questions to ask, you can always reach out to me on 916-1742 or by email on deputy@redcross.org.ky.
Thanks very much to each of you personally, together with your team and the wider community, as we do our part to truly understand that protection doesn't need to start here. Look forward to next month's discussion, Ms. Carolina.
Yes, sir. We'll be back.
All right. And to our parents, it is our responsibility to make sure that collectively but individually we work for the betterment of our children. We sacrifice so much. It's the reason why we go to the jobs that some of us hate. Sometimes we're anxious to go to the jobs that we love. Hey, Kevin, I speak the truth, on days ending in Y. But we do a lot.
I love my job, and that's why we're all here, because we're doing it.
You took the words out of my mouth, and there are those of us who love what we do, but we get up in the morning and we do it because we want to make it better for our children. Well, this is just another aspect of our jobs, our responsibilities. Invite each of you to have an excellent weekend. The World Cup mightn't go the way we would want it to go.
Dude.
But
come on.
hey, listen, the ball is round, it bounces.
Oh.
Enjoy your weekend, each of you. And to the rest of us, well, we can drown our sorrows or some swanking somewhere for someone. On Monday, come back for more talk today, right after the midday news and midday meditation. But I invite you to please join me, Start the Corner, for the record to start the day out. Until then, be blessed.
Shaken yet standing firm. This is Radio Cayman in the Cayman Islands.